It's the Abba podcast. Let's go. And the next guest on the podcast is 2016 Premiership winner Shane Flanagan. Shane, how are we, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain. What you been up to these days?
I've been busy over Christmas doing nothing really, but it was a bit tough. We usually go away up to Queensland, but I suppose everyone's in the same boat. Back home, Kyle's back into training, so yeah, looking forward to the season coming up.
So how's the Flanagan household, mate? You all in on the Bulldogs this year?
We're all in on the Bulldogs, mate. Yes. Funny that I most of my junior footy was played at the Bulldogs, or in the Bulldogs area anyway, at the St George Dragons. So we was brought up around Roselands area. So we've got a bit of I have anyway. I know the area pretty well. Kyle didn't even know where it was really. Belmore Oval before I took him there, and when he signed there. So, but yeah, looking forward to the season.
So how is that as a father now, as a spectator, an ex-coach? Do you always try and give him a few pointers here and there, or you let him be?
Yeah, it's a tough one. He's his own man now, and he's doing his own bit. But I always try and help him along the way. And if I can point anything out, it's always been the same way since he's a little kid. We've always had good conversations around what he needs to do and what he's doing well and what he can improve on. And it's still the same today. He was always straight away after a game. He's first to me to come and, what did I think? And, I've got to be careful that I, don't put the coach's hat on all the time and, look at, positive and negatives and just sometimes put the father's hat on and just say, hey, mate, that was great, and let's get on with the next bit, because you do look at things differently as a coach, and you're always trying to improve, but sometimes you just got to be that father and just say, hey, that was pretty good. Well done.
Yeah, that positive reinforcement's very important, as like you said, the struggle and finding the balance. But unlike many,
Yep.
you've both played and coached. So talk to us about your playing days and the struggles and how you can relate with Kyle on a day-to-day basis.
It was probably a little bit more different. It was probably a little bit different than when I was playing, because I never really went through that professional era. We were always part-time. I had a job most of the time when I was playing, and we trained at night and just played on the weekend. It was three nights a week you'd train and play on Saturday or Sunday. So completely different environment to now, where it's just a full-time job. But I've been through that as a coach. 8 years of an NRL coach. I saw a lot of players come through, and some of them struggle with the full-time professionalism of rugby league, but and others thrive off it. But Kyle's been around football all his life, and to a certain degree professional football. Like was a ball boy, and just hung around the system, went to training with me. Was just a little kid and kicked balls around, and would have seen a lot of things and learned a lot of things before his time, before he even played junior reps. Oops. You there, mate?
No, we got you back. We had your voice. We just lost the visual for a bit.
Yep. Yeah, so he probably learned a lot along the way before he even played junior reps, and before he came into the full-time system. So he's done pretty well, and hopefully the next couple of years he's really nails his role as an NRL halfback, which is a big job, a really big job. There's not too many of them that nail it consistently and have a long career. So that's the challenge he's got ahead.
And the challenge, I feel, that he's well equipped to tackle with yourself and the family supporting him. Talk to us a bit about coaching. Now, you got into coaching after your playing days at Parramatta. How was that transition from a player to a coach, and was that something you always thought you'd get into?
I'll answer the last one first. It was something I when I was playing, I wasn't thinking about it. I had my own business, a plumbing business that was going along pretty well, and I injured my knee in my second last year at Parramatta. I had one more year in my contract to go, and I did it in the last game of the year and had to have a reconstruction. So probably in back those days, it was even a little bit longer recovery as well. So I probably wasn't going to get back on the field in my last year of my contract, and Parramatta were in a position that they sort of said to me, listen, we still want you around, and I'm really privileged. I'm really, honoured that they did it at the time, and I was lucky that they did it at the time. Said, look, we'll just put you into a coaching role, and we still want you around the club, and you can move on. So, I did that. The following year, I coached the estuary ball at Parramatta, and we had, a really, really good side. But, the Kalises and the Hindmarshes, Luke Burts, Jamie Lyons, and all those type of players. So my first introduction into coaching, I had some really classy young players. So, I was really grateful for Parramatta to give me that opportunity, and it sort of, led me into, coaching there for probably another 6 or 7 years at Parramatta, and then going full time when I went to the Roosters later on in 2004. But, I didn't plan on doing it. It just sort of happened. But, it's led me down a new career path, and I've really enjoyed it.
So what's the coaching method that you've adopted? Because legend has it, you don't want to get on the bad side of a Shane Flanagan rant.
I think I've calmed down a little bit. But when those Shane Flanagan rants that you talk about, it's probably more about how I get disappointed with individuals or a team, because I know they can be better. Like I've never ever gone on a rant or give someone a bit of a gobful that I didn't know that could do better, or I hadn't seen that they could do better. I always try and get the best out of my players and best out of my team. And, obviously you set some standards, and you set those standards based on fact, that you can do some things. And, when they don't do those things, that's when it disappoints me, because lack of preparation is usually the key, or lack of belief in the system or trust. So a lot of those things come into play when you start to get into a team environment, and that's what disappoints me. But it's hard as a coach, because you expect excellence all the time, and it's just, unfortunately, it's not possible week after week in the NRL. So you got to manage players, and you got to manage your team. But definitely calm down a little bit in that area, I think. But sometimes players, they look back at it and go, "Hey, we needed you to give it to us that day. We needed our ass kicked." And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So it's a balance of when to do it and when not to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a balance, and a balance I think that you've done really well, especially with a player, Andrew Fifita. Talk to us a bit about your relationship with Andrew and how you got the best out of him in the years that he won the Daily M properly.
Yeah, well, Andrew came to the club. I remember seeing him play a game for Balmain, West Tigers. He played down in Canberra, and as a young front row coming into the NRL, I think he ran about 90 metres and pushed off half a dozen players, and he was just sort of coming onto the scene. And I just thought, what a special talent for a front rower to be able to do that, be fast, agile and strong. And I went back, and him and his brother were playing at the West Tigers, and they weren't getting too much of a run. They were in and out. And at that stage, I didn't know which one was Andrew and which one was David, and who was going to be the best player. But we signed both of them, not in the same time. We got Andrew first, and we got David later. And I just built a relationship with Andrew. It's a pretty well told story that Andrew got himself in a fair bit of trouble when he was a young kid, and had to move out to out west. Otherwise, he was probably going to go to jail. And he moved out there and changed his ways and worked hard and became in love with rugby league. And then, as I said, he's always had some, he just didn't disregard his friends or his upbringing. He actually sort of embraced it and wanted to teach people about it, how, he can get in trouble, and how he got in trouble and how he got himself out of it. And, I really loved the story. And then when he came to the Sharks, I could see that little bit of rogue in him, and I sort of could see that little bit of a person in there that wanted to continue to improve. And he came to the Sharks, and, I remember him, we're doing these sort of fitness tests. At that time, I think we had Bowie Ryan was the fittest outside back. He could run. He was like a greyhound. He could run, but definitely Andrew Fifita wasn't too far behind him out of the whole squad. And that's an amazing effort for someone back then. He was still about 118 kilos, and he could just run all day, and he was a really quality athlete. And, he developed on as a footy player and had this real determination wanting to succeed. And that was probably, drilled into him when he was a young kid, that he that he was no good. He couldn't do anything. And it started to affect him, and he started to believe that he could do things, and he was a good kid. And he came to the Sharks, and became a leader in that first grade football team, and as a front rower, and played Origin, and then went and played for Australia, and then finally played in the grand final for us. And we all know about the try he scored. So, it's a really good story. Ben, you build relationships with your players, and I definitely built one with Andrew. And I understand that he's different, and you need to treat him. Sometimes he needs a bit of a kick up the butt, and he wants it from people that he respects. And other times you need to give him a cuddle, because he's not, even though he is 130 kilos these days, or maybe a bit less, and big and strong and everything, he needs a cuddle and needs reassurance that he's doing the right thing. So all those type of things about player management, which I really enjoy, and treating everyone different, as I said. And I think if you do treat everyone a little bit different, and in a team environment, but have the same rules for a lot of them, and work together as a group, eventually get a result you want. And definitely that came together, because the group in 2016 were as tight a group as I've ever seen, and we all knew each other's qualities, and we sort of demanded each other to bring out those qualities every weekend. And that's where Andrew had come along, and he won Dalian Prop of the Year, and as I said, he played for his state, his country, and won a grand final. So he's had a fantastic career, but I just hope it's not finished yet. He's still got a bit of football in him. I think he's training really hard at the moment. We might see Andrew Fifita playing some really good football again this year.
Yeah, no, it looks like he shed a lot of weight in this preseason. He's back under 120 now, so he's ready for the speed of the game and what's up and coming with that. Yep. So, as a leader and a coach, you've instilled those values yourself. You're a regular donor of blood because you've got a rare blood type. Your mental health awareness. You're out there helping the communities with charity organisations. So was that important to lead with your actions, and then the rest will look after itself?
Yeah, I think that's just me. But I think, if you're going to, start to set some standard and values within your club, and, we're down at the Sharks, it was definitely a community club that you needed to, it's no use, talking it up. You have to actually do it, So I really encourage our players to do stuff in the community, and my blood bank stuff I really enjoy. No one knows about it too much. No one knows who it fixes, or how they use the plasma that I give every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But I know it's helping people save lives, and even to a lesser extent, our players out in the community coaching football teams, going to hospitals, seeing sick kids. I really encourage all of that, because they are in a privileged position in the NRL and playing, get paid well, but they're still, especially down at Cronulla, you've got to be part of the community, and our players, I think the players love that. And if you can't keep taking out of the pot, you've got to put back in sometimes. And I really encourage everyone to jump into doing that. And for me, it gives you a great satisfaction in seeing all those players develop in that area, and it's still happening down there at the moment. I see Ronaldo Mortalo, he's putting the heat back into the community, and all the players are. So it's a good thing. Rugby league, they get criticised sometimes, but they definitely do put back into the community.
Yeah, no, that's important, and it's good that you guys do that. And with social media as well, it's good that it's portrayed to the public, and the public get to see that side of you guys, and also hear that, just as puts things into context that they are really good guys, and at the end of the day, these things mean a lot to them. And you talk about the camaraderie of your team and your squad in 2016. I think all these things help build that, and then the results show on the field.
Yeah, you do. You definitely need the right, obviously they're going to be talented football players on the football field, but I've seen some really talented teams not win. And I've seen some, sides with a lot less talent, but a lot of, values and understanding and belief and trust in each other, in what they're doing on the field, and trust in the coaches, trust in the systems, the way they're going to defend and the way they're going to attack, and never go away from that. They, under pressure in the NRL, definitely, sometimes tries to score against teams because they go out of the system. Someone goes out of the system, and, to a lot of the teams that I've been involved in that are successful, they've stayed in the system no matter what, because the system works. And if we all do it together, we're a bigger chance of solving the problem. And, once teams understand that, they're definitely a better chance of winning consistently or winning. It doesn't have to be rocket science, but we're all going to be doing the same thing. If we not all doing the same thing, something's going to break down along the way.
Yeah, and that's heard then. Your coaching stripes, before you gained your first grade gig, you did a stint with Craig Bellamy and Ricky Stewart. Talk to us a bit about how that time was, what you learned, what you seen, and how they ran their team.
Yeah, well, Ricky was at the Roosters and a little bit at the Sharks, but my time with Ricky, excuse me, I'll just cancel this.
No, you're right.
Yeah, my time with Ricky at the Roosters was, a really good time. The Roosters had a fantastic team at that stage and playing in grand finals, and nearly all the players were Origin, New South Wales or Queensland Origin, and playing for their country. So Brad Fittlers and Luke Richardsons and Craig Wings, the whole team, Adrian Morley, the whole team, right from the front row to the fullback, were superstars, Minicello and so on. So that was a real experience to be involved in that superstar group of players and being involved with the Roosters. It was a different club, different setup, the way the club ran, obviously with Nick Politis and so on. So it was good to experience that and also experience the way that Ricky coached. Ricky's a passionate person. Everyone sees that, and that's the way he coaches. He's passionate. He loves his players, and he coaches down those type of lines. And then I was lucky enough to do 3 years of Origin with Craig Bellamy. While we didn't win the Origin any of those years, they won a game and they were very, very close to winning Origin. And Queensland had by far their best team ever in Origin. But I learned a lot off Craig and about preparation and the way you dress teams and team meetings. You just pick up a lot of things along the way. Both of those coaches. So I enjoyed my time with both of them, and it put me in a really good position whenever the time comes that I had to do the head coaching role myself. So I learned a lot off them. I was lucky enough at the Roosters. Phil Gould was there at the time, so I learned a lot off him. When I was playing, I had some fantastic coaches. Warren Ryan, Mick Cronin. Both way different ends of the spectrum in coaching. Warren Ryan is the more the technical and tactical coach, and was teaching us all these things about plays and moves and moving the opposition around the football field, where Mick Cronin was more about teammates and valuing the jersey and working really hard for each other. It wasn't a lot about the tactical and technical side of things. So, two coaches completely different, but you got to take a little bit from both of them, which I really enjoyed as well.
So, and the time did come in 2010. So the back end of the season, you come into the Cronulla Sharks with 6 games remaining. What was your mindset coming into the new club? What was your ambitions? And did you foresee the Premiership that did later come on?
Oh, not at that stage. Definitely 2010 was, it was a tough year. They had a couple of good years at the Sharks. Me and Ricky, one game away from a grand final twice, I think. 2008 was definitely one year that we were a chance of getting to a grand final and just couldn't get that last game done. And then, Ricky left at the end of 2010 and I took over. And, the last 6 weeks, there was no real expectation on me from the club. It was just more about, trying to win a football game and taking the pressure off and then head into the following season. We played okay in those last 6 games, but for me, it was just more about, doing the job that I needed to do for those 6 weeks and putting a good football team out in the park and competing really hard. If we didn't win, that wasn't the end of the world, but we needed to show that we had pride in our jersey and work really hard for each other and finish the season off with some credibility.
Yeah, and that's what you guys did. You built into the 2011-2012 season where you started to buy some players. You got your Chris Hyantons, you had your Luke Lewis's, your Michael Gordons came into the club. You had Todd Carney the year prior. So when you're trying to poach these players, are you potentially trying to poach potential Premiership winning players that can come and, show the youngsters how they're meant to be training on and off the field, so on and so forth?
We definitely had a philosophy on what type of player we wanted to have. I had a real good recruitment manager there in Darren Mooney. And we had a very similar vision of what type of player we wanted. And the board at the time was really supportive. And, we decided we wanted to go as a group, not just myself, we wanted to go down this path of getting some representative players to the club, and players that still had a couple of years left in them, that weren't at the end of their career, but still had a couple of years. And they might have been finished rep football, but they definitely had some good years in them. So we could, have some good performances, build up the crowd at Shire Park, build up membership and sponsorship, and which we did. And, all those players you just named, all had played, Michael Gordon, Chris Hynington, even Bo Ryan. And then, Luke Lewis, we signed a young Wade Graham. They'd all sort of played representing football at some point, and we needed those type of players to complement. We had Paul Gallen, who was basically carrying the team week after week on his own shoulders, so we needed to put some good players around him. And our philosophy was to get those players, and probably Luke was another key signing. We had Todd Carney, and that didn't work out for us, but then later on we continued down that path, the same philosophy that we wanted good players at our club. And we got Andrew Fifita from West Tigers, who wasn't a rep player, but he was a quality thing. And then the other front row, we had Sam Tagatese, and we got Matt Pryor from the Dragons, classic example of still playing good football. We had Luke Lewis and Paul Gallen in the second row, and Wade Graham. And then we signed Michael Innes, and that was probably the key in 2015 that we needed that one last little probably piece to the jigsaw puzzle, and I think he was probably it. We had some really good young outside backs in Valentine Holmes and Jack Bird, but Michael was that missing piece that we needed to get the job done. And when he came in 2015, we went from a team that just made the 8, the team that was definitely going to challenge, and we went close in 2015, and obviously one more year in 2016 with him understanding our systems and processes, we were good enough to win it.
So and speak to us a bit about Jimmy Maloney. What was his influence on the halves? You had Maloney, Townsend, and Ennis.
Yep.
How was that going forward?
Yeah, well, I probably that was the mistake not mentioning him. He was key for us as well. He was such a competitor. You there? Yeah, he was such a competitor. Week in, week out. He was a character without a doubt. When during the week he was hard to handle. He was always up to something, playing tricks in games, and not the best in team meetings and so on. But that was Jimmy Maloney. You got to learn to understand the way he was. He wasn't disruptive, he was disruptive, but he wasn't bringing anything. He wasn't trying to bring the team down or affect the team's performance. That was just his personality. But come the weekend and come when you walked out on the football field to train, he trained really well, and it was tough. Week in, week out, he played. Fantastic goal kicker. So, he was one of those players that definitely, him and Michael Innes put that icing and the cherry on top for us.
So in 2016, you get into the top 4. You go to Canberra, and it's a 16-14 win. How was that trip to Canberra, and how did you get the team together?
The trip down there wasn't that great because we lost Paul Gallen in the lead up to that game, and we're sort of really important. We played well all year. We won 15 games in a row, I think it was, and we get to a semi-final, and our captain pulls out, so it wasn't a great preparation. And I think a lot of the players might have had a bit of doubt in their minds that we could get the job done. And we went down there, and then after 5 or 10 minutes, it was 12-0, and the captain, Gal's out, and then the captain will be named for the day, Wade Graham, got knocked out in the first set at 6. And he's off the field as well. So we really had our backs against the wall. But, as I said to you, the belief and trust in everything we did, from coaching right through to all the players, it just shone out on that day, and we got the job done 14-12. And that was probably one of the big keys, that we had the weekend off and we could go into the grand final qualifier with plenty of energy and everyone fit and healthy.
So you go into the grand final challenger against the Cowboys. Now, talk to us about that preparation. A Jonathan Thurston led team. What were the struggles of that week, and how did you get the boys prepared? And was Gallen and Wade Graham rested and ready to go?
Yeah, no, that week was it was 2 weeks because we had the week off. So we're really lucky that we had that week off, because Gal got a chance to get himself right. Hurt his back lifting weights in the gym, and even the bumps and bruises from the semi-final against Canberra, we had this plenty of time. To get a week off at that time of the season is just, you just can't replace it, and gives everyone that little bit of energy, and we can train a lot more, and we can really prepare, and we can sit back and watch the Cowboys play whoever they did play that week. And I think it was Brisbane to go, and then all of a sudden, okay, we can set our sights to play them the following week. And it was just, everything sort of just built up that year. And that week we played at the Sydney Football Stadium, and we had a really good week. Everyone was fit and healthy, and we had a really good plan of what we wanted to do. And we just went out there, and when we went out there, I think it was 36,000 Sharks fans and, a handful of Cowboys fans. So when you look back, all that was sort of the start of the process of us winning the grand final. And we went out, and then we put 28 on them in the first half, and it was sort of all over then. And we cruised through the second half. Actually, we were able to rest a couple of players late in the second half, and we come out of that with no injuries again, and really set for, give our grand final our best shot that we could.
So, the grand final week. Talk to us a bit about grand final week, the Melbourne Storms. You had a bit of time with Craig Bellamy. So did you have a bit of insight? Did you feel how they would be prepared? And did that change anything in your preparation? And how conscious of you were you were you guys involved in the media? Did you have grand final breakfast and all that? How did you manage that throughout the week?
Yeah, the media and all the build up to it, I'd been involved with the Roosters grand finals, and I was involved in one at Parramatta when they played Newcastle and got beat. So, I'd been around, wasn't the head coach, but I'd actually seen some preparations for grand finals, and I learned a little bit from that. The one that the Parramatta, I thought they got wrong. They went away and didn't do their normal week, and then I saw some at the Roosters that I thought were closer to the mark. And we had our own one that we needed to discuss, our own grand final week, and it was enjoyable, all the media and the commitments, but we made sure that we didn't let it affect us. It was all part of the celebration of being in a grand final. You can think it as a burden, or you think it's a part of the celebration. And we embraced it and just sort of said it's part of our celebration of being in a grand final. Let's enjoy every minute of this week. And we did that and had a really good week. And I don't think, there wasn't any hiccups. Probably bar the day before the grand final, we went and trained out at the Homebush Stadium, Olympic Stadium, and it was blowing a gale, and none of our players could catch a ball because it was so windy. So we didn't train real well the day before the grand final, which wasn't ideal. But it was a perfect week for us, and ended up exactly that, the perfect week for us.
So talk to us at the final moments. You must have been a bit nervous, and then the celebrations that came afterwards.
Well, the last couple of minutes, I think there was a minute left on the clock. We kicked down in goal. They stopped the clock, and there was going to be a scrum. I knew Melbourne were going to throw everything they could at us, one last set, and the team that they've got. So we'd sort of practiced for that for a long period of time. Being down a man, or having to defend our try line in the last couple of minutes. We'd actually practiced that for all year. So it was one of those things. Again, it was. In the end, it was meant to be, because we did practice for that, and we just scrambled, and eventually they attacked our try line. We went from one side to the other side. I was terribly nervous that something was going to happen, but we're just good enough to solve it in the end. And from then it was a fantastic week. It was fantastic celebrations. Went for the whole week, maybe a little bit more for some, but it was definitely a fantastic week, and the whole community enjoyed it. There was a lot of people had waited a long time, 50 years for that to come about. And, we needed to make sure that we did celebrate it in the right way as well.
Yeah, and the celebration it was. I remember being at Shark Park about 2-3 in the morning, and the team still hadn't got there. Yeah. So it was a long night indeed. So we look at 2018. Now, 2018 is another season you finish in the top 4. But talk to us as a father of Kyle. The debut against Newcastle, which is my squad, round 24. Yeah. How did that go for you as a father? How proud were you? And as a coach, how were you? How was that week giving him his debut?
It was. I look back on it now, and I probably should have enjoyed it a little bit more and sat back as a father rather than a coach. But it's hard to do that when you're in that moment. But I was going to give him his debut the week before. And I was going to rest someone because we were going pretty well in 2018. We were a chance of getting into the grand final as well. But a few injuries got us real late in the year, and I was sort of planning to rest a couple and give a couple of boys their opportunity to play, and Kyle was one of them. And he played the next week, and I was really I was proud as a father. He did a really good job. It was great to see him. He played all his junior rep foot. He's played his whole life in Cronulla colours. So to make his debut, and Kyle really looks up to Mitchell Pearce as a player as well. So he always sort of watches his game, the way he plays. So it was good for him to debut against them. And that's as a father, as a coach, I was just glad he got through with it and he didn't stuff up anywhere.
No, he went through, and you guys put a thumping on us. I think it was like 38-10, and it was a successful debut, I remember.
Yeah, we've always had over the last couple, 19, 18, probably those tough years for the Knights that they won a couple of spoons and so on, but we'd always put a score on them. I remember once we played them up at Newcastle and we put 60 or something on them. It was like a perfect performance for us. Not so good for Newcastle, but the way we played was pretty close to perfect.
Yeah, no, I recall that. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm a Knights fan, and boy, did you put a thumping on us that day.
Could enjoy those ones.
Yeah, no, I'll sit on the other side of the spectrum there. Talk to us a bit about as a coach. So, in the struggles, the ups, the downs. You've rode the roller coasters of everything that a coach could potentially ride. What keeps you wanting to be a coach and to continue in the future, if that's a choice you would like to go through?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's a rewarding job. It's not always based on winning and losing, and you got to look at it sometimes that way. But unfortunately, other people don't look at it that way. The media, fans sometimes don't look at it that way, and definitely your employers don't look at it that way. It's based on winning at NRL. If you wanted to go into coaching, I'd advise you to go in, just go and do some junior rep coaching, or coach some lower grades, or be an assistant coach. But it is a bug, and once you've got it, and but for some of us, I think it's a career that I've taken. I'm going to continue to do, and what makes me want to do it. Sometimes I question myself, why would I want to do it? But then I still get up the next morning and want to do it. So it's just one of those things that you get hooked onto, and you just want to continue to do. And it's about, in the end, it's about winning those games on the weekend. But for a coach, there's a lot more to it. It's about player development, seeing people grow within the organisation, seeing the organisation grow. They're all part of the coach's role, but unfortunately, we only get judged on winning and losing.
Yeah, look, it is a real cutthroat industry, and it's you look at people like Wayne Bennett, who's going into his 70s. He picked up an extra gig with Queensland. He's got his full-time gig at Souths. What do you think he's got or he's doing that most people don't do?
I think Wayne's pretty simple in his approach to rugby league. From all the players and staff that I've had that have worked with Wayne, that he's not overly complicated. Football hasn't changed a lot. It's changed a bit in the last year or two, but the last 50 years, rugby league's still been the same game we play every weekend. The things that win you games and the things that lose you games are exactly the same. And I think Wayne, it's got a philosophy about, don't put pressure on ourselves and apply pressure to the opposition, and that'll get you a long way. And then have a really good skill set, when everyone do their job. So if you're a front rower, your skill set and your job is, or if you're a halfback, your skill set and your job is. And he's really clear and defining, those roles. And as I said, and really big on applying pressure and relieving pressure on themselves. So don't complicate it too much.
Yeah, no, it's like the fundamentals of everything. The ABCs are things that you stick to, you'll be successful, but they're also the hardest things to master at the same time. So
they can be, yep.
Yeah, no, and talk to us about the Dragons last season. You were an assistant. They had the 1 year to, you could have potentially been there if they chose or opted to keep you there. How was that relationship going back to your childhood club, where you played a lot of your junior football? And how was your time at the Dragons?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. As you said, it was going back to my junior club. I had some really good times there. Won a couple of competitions, lower grade competitions, and it was always my dream as a kid to play NRL for the Dragons. I was lucky enough to do that. So to go back there as a coach, as assistant coach, was definitely different and challenging. But I enjoyed the challenge about changing my role, changing my attitude towards things, changing my approach towards things. And working with the people down there. You know, Paul McGregor was really good to work with, Dean Young, their football managers and so on. They were all fantastic people, and all the players were good, and they tried really hard. It was unfortunate that COVID hit, and we had a disrupted season, and eventually Paul McGregor was sacked, and Dean Young come in as interim for the last bit. So you throw on the speculation about Paul being sacked from game one, COVID, Paul getting sacked eventually, and then Dean taking over. They had a pretty disruptive year, the Dragons, and they tried really hard as a group, and there's some good people down there, and hopefully they'll have a better season this year. But to answer your question as a whole, I really enjoyed it, and it was a real challenge, but enjoyed it.
Yeah, look, the Dragons are a tough club, especially the supporting base. They got a very short-term memory. And the squad they had last season, it seemed like on paper it wasn't as bad as how it went. And it felt like the outside noise, the pressure, COVID and everything else, it took it to a level where it was actually, I felt that the Dragons underperformed last year. And especially with yourself at the helm, I felt they had the experience, they had everything there, but not much went right for them.
No, it didn't. There was a couple of games there that they lost in the last couple of minutes, and you can put it down to whatever, but in the end, they just didn't get it done in probably 5 or 6 games, which would have put them into, 6th, 7th, 8th type position, but they couldn't get it done. And whether it was down to the disruptive season, coaching, whatever it may be, but you're definitely right in when you talk about outside noise. The Dragons supporters are loud, and there's a lot of them. But, that's what happens when you've been involved with a successful club, and they demand a lot. And unfortunately, if you go there as a coach, you need to understand that they're going to be coming after you if you don't win footy games, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the culture of the Dragons. We had Soward on last week, and he basically said the same thing. He said that's a club, and that's what you get when you're at the club. 2022, the coaching. You're allowed to be a head coach again. The NRL will grant you the license. Till 2022, what are we looking at? Are we looking at the media? Are we looking at any other gigs that potentially are coming up? What's the future for Shane Flanagan?
Yeah, I'll just do a little bit of media this year, and who knows, there could be some coaching roles come up through the year. But I'll just do a little bit of stuff in the media, and that'll keep me busy and keep my eye out for a job next year. It's unfortunate you got to look at someone's going to get the sack, to someone to get a job, but that's the business we're in, and it might happen, it might not happen. I'll just get on with life and do my coaching on the side and do my media and see where we end up.
Yeah, no, look, we've been seeing you a lot on the TV lately. We've seen you at Paul Gallen's last fight. Talk to us a bit about Paul and what makes him, such a supreme athlete, where he done what he done. He ticked every box in rugby league. Then he goes out and he's making a lot of noise in the boxing world in Australia.
Yeah, I've coached Gal for, when I was an assistant coach, and I had involvement with him for like 16 years. So I've been there a big part of his career and got a great relationship with him. It's I probably understand him better than most. He's a different type of athlete, but he's so dedicated to what he needs to do. He trains harder than any other player that I'd ever coached. He'd train during the day, he'd come back at night and have ice baths and hot tubs or whatever he needed. He'd come back and get massage. He'd do a lot more than a lot of people saw that he was doing in preparation. And he knew that he wasn't that skillful or that talented, that he had to work hard in all areas, and especially in the strength and conditioning side of things. So he was always super strong. He was super fit. And just dedicated, and then he's taken that into boxing. I watched him spar every session, basically, bar the ones in a state lead up to his last fight, and he got better every week, and he planned his preparation to just perfectly, and he's just got this inner belief that he's going to win, and he trains that way, and he lives his life that way, and he's as tough as nails. So that's probably the end one. He's hard to hurt, and if you're going to beat him, you're going to have to really hurt him, and that's not easy.
Yeah, no, look, it's not easy. He did take down Mark, the Super Samoan Hunt, who has powerful, devastating power. And now he's going on to take on Lucas Big Daddy Brown, who's an ex-world champion. So he's gone from the pinnacle of one game to the top of boxing.
Yeah. I don't think Gal originally when he started all this, that he knew he'd get to this point. I think he was doing it at the time because, it was part of our training. We, you probably can blame me a little bit for it because we used to get him to, we have a boxing coach to train our older players and keep them off their legs. And he started to enjoy it and look where he is now. But he's, as I said, he believes in himself and he wouldn't be doing it if he didn't believe that he could win. And as I said, it's a brave person to back against him because he's so determined.
So the most committed player that played under your ranks would have been Paul Gallen?
Committed and dedicated? Yes. Yeah, by far.
Who's the most skilled player that's been under your ranks?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of skilled ones. Probably Benny Barber.
Benny Barber. So who's a class clown? The biggest class clown you had to deal with?
Oh, that'd definitely be Bo Ryan or James Maloney. That'd be a dead heat, that one.
So we'll leave you to it. But the last thing we need for future junior coaches that, up and coming, people who aspire to be a coach, what's a tip that Shane Flanagan can give to people that are going to be listening to this?
I think, you need to understand the game that you're going to, go into. You need to understand as you said before, the fundamentals of it and be able to coach the fundamentals. Really, no matter what age group you're thinking, right up to, junior rep age group, they need to be able to catch and pass and tackle and move. Players you need to be able to move. So a lot of coaches go away from teaching people how to move, getting their coordination skills up, being able to run and catch at the same time. So if you can get your teams that can do the fundamentals consistently and right across the park from all your players, you're a long way down the track of having a good footy team because you don't need to do the big picture stuff. Your set plays, passing from one side to the other and run arounds and doing all this sort of stuff. You need to be able to execute the basic skills. So that'd be the one thing I'd probably tip them.
And to be tactical or a man manager, how do they have to balance that struggle?
Well, if they're only in junior reps, then I don't think you need to be tactical. You need to understand your team and your strengths of your team. So probably a little bit more tactical if that's what you want to think. But, especially in junior reps, you need to encourage and, promote players just to want to play the game because, some of the better ones at, 8, 9 and 10 aren't going to be the ones at 18, 19, 20. There's going to be development curves and rises, ups and downs all the way along. So, treat everyone the same, encourage development. And as I said, coach those basic skills and you'll get there.
No, thank you for your time, Shane. It's been an absolute pleasure and honour to talk to you. 2016 Premiership winning coach. Watch his space. He's not done yet. Shane Flanagan, thanks for joining the podcast.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
No, champion. Thanks, mate.
See you, bud.
See you, mate.